Hey guys, Harker here. I want to talk to you guys about something that I really enjoy outside of making videos of video games, playing video games in general, all that. I'm a 90s kid. I was born in 87, so when I grew up, there was a choice of Sega versus Super Nintendo, and my house had the Sega, and therefore I was a big Sonic fan. Growing up, I remember when I first discovered this. This was my first Sonic comic, and it's still intact, by the way. I'm keeping this bad boy preserved forever. And I followed the Sonic the Hedgehog comics up until issue 70, when stores around me simply didn't sell them anymore. It was the damnedest thing. Grocery stores didn't have them. Comic shops were kind of closing down around that time, because that was about 99. And you just couldn't find them anymore, and I didn't really do anything for an allowance, so I didn't have money to go and get a subscription. So as I grew up, it just kind of fell off my map. And a few years down the line, I in turn was shopping at a local grocery store, and wasn't as surprised when I found this bad boy just sitting on the shelf. I didn't even go in the magazine area, it was just dumped on a shelf. This one is issue 233, and the one over here when I started was issue 5. So there's a lot of gap there. And the particular one actually I should show a little closer is Child the Traitor. And this one involved Jeffrey St. John, who betrayed everybody, the freedom fighters, to go help Ixis Nagas, I believe his name was, and help him become the true king that he was entitled to. Now, that drew me in because growing up I liked St. John as a character. He's introduced in the Princess Sally series. His character Climax as a big anti-hero, I guess I would word him as, the way he was fighting Sonic a lot for Sally's hand, as well as for her vengeance, or so he thought, in the Endgame story arc, which is, I believe, issue 46 to 50. So he had a lot of use then. I kind of liked him. I liked the anti-heroes, characters, and villains, especially in these series. So when I found that, I went and I just started buying all the Sonic archives to catch myself up. And there's a lot of reading to do for me still, and I went and ordered pretty much everything. I'm up to date on the archives, with the exception of this Knuckles the Echidna series, which I got to go back and get. But I've been buying all these things. I've been reliving my childhood. I loved it. And I still kind of love it. And I go and I get certain issues that are interesting to me. Like, for example, here we have the 2-part series of the Tails vs. Sonic. I was a younger person in the family, so I was player 2. So there was no me playing Sonic. I play Tails. And therefore I like Tails as a character more than Sonic. And I went and got other ones like this one, and I have the 2-part with Sally marrying Patch, who is the anti-Antoine who invaded. And I love the whole anti-Sonic, the suppression squad as they became, and then he became Scourge. I love his character, and I think he's awesome. And I especially found that when I found this sitting there as well, and I subscribed to Sonic and Sonic U. In this particular one, Scourge, to my knowledge, I didn't know, was he became king then, and he got betrayed by the entire anti-heroes as well as the main heroes, and only Fiona Fox helped him. And then he got betrayed, he lost, and ultimately got captured and put in jail, and Fiona goes in to break him out. And that's where Fiona caught my eye, because she was an incredibly badass character, and I figured she looked kind of familiar. And looking at it, she existed from my old series way back when I started reading, and that was when Tails fell in love with a robot of her. So, that aside, that's how I knew about Fiona and everything, and I went back and started getting comics about her. I've trying to get the issues where they have the King Scourge arc, but a lot of those issues I found on eBay are going for like $25 a pop, so I'd rather ask Archie if they can release it in a series first before I throw $25 down for a single issue, because remember, I have like 7, 8 of these to buy. That's a lot of dough. Anyways, the main thing I'm bringing up about, and I'm making the video about, is everything was great in the Sonic universe. I got back into it, so I'm about two years plus into this again, and I'm loving it. And then they threw a wrench right into my enjoyment. So we're going to start with this one. This will be my last one we're going to use as a prop for you guys. So in this one, it's the Endangered Species. This particular one is part 2. I just used that because I felt the cover was better. But in that one, basically they got rid of all the echidnas, which were the same species as Knuckles. I might be pronouncing their species wrong, but forgive me if that's the case. But at any rate, Thrash the Devil shows up. He vaguely captures everybody and chucks them in a ring to a different zone. And that includes Lara-Su, who's a character who's Knuckles' girlfriend, and then maybe his wife in the future. Lien-Da, who is the leader of the Dark Egg Legion and a very badass character. And pretty much all the randoms, with exception to a few. Like Locke, who died, and some of the other characters. But basically everybody but Knuckles got chucked through a ring. And, you know, at the time I was reading it and I was saying, well, that might coincide with the whole Mecha Sally thing, where they had Sally got robotized and was like a super cyborg, basically. And you had Sonic, Tails, Amy chasing in her wake, trying to free her. And then you had everybody else staying back, keep an eye on Jeffrey St. John and Ixis Nagus. And, like, they had a good story going on there. And it was really starting to finally come to head. We saw in that particular storyline, to shifting gear real quick, like St. John had redemption coming. He betrayed, he found out he was wrong. He helped Elias, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Acorn, who's Sally's brother, who was also a secret agent, stop Nagus' plan. And he eventually went to betray Nagus, and Nagus possessed him. So you had their betrayal realization, he was leading to redemption, got possessed, and then that series just kind of stopped. And same with the Thrash one here. This one just kind of stopped out of the blue. They finished this, they went to the Mega Man arc. I didn't have any interest in that because I'm not a Mega Man fan, so I didn't follow that. And after that, it just kind of gone. What happened was they had something called the Genesis Wave, which is basically the reset button. And I didn't quite understand it then, and I had to do a little research, but basically there was legal issues and they had to write characters out, one of which being St. John. Then you had Lara-Su got written out, Lien-Da got written out. So you had these characters that they weren't main characters, but they were in the front of the camera right now, so you notice them gone. You had other characters like Sally's brother got written out, and especially when they just spent issues building him. And that kind of sucks. Scourge technically would be getting written out as well, and I'm going to go into detail on that in a minute. And they had other minor characters like Dr. Quack, nobody really missed, Dulcie the Dragon, nobody really missed, and there's a bunch of randoms that another writer, Ken Penders, brought into the universe that they were just trying to phase out, which is pretty much all Knuckles' species. And that would explain the whole Thrash thing, where Thrash sent them through a ring. But ultimately, you just sit there and you're like, what the hell's going on? Because they, all of a sudden, you look into the new one and they have like flying air base, so the Freedom Fighters can follow Sonic across a shattered world and everything. And while it works, you say, what the hell happened here? Like, why would they just drop a storyline so out of the blue? So I did some online research, and I'm late into this party, but as it turns out, there was a lawsuit, and every character that Ken Penders had his hand in, they took out. Now, this pisses me off because a lot of these characters I started to like, and then they get taken from me, and I'm still reading about them, and I'm going to be reading about them with the Sonic Archives and issues I'm going to buy. And then you just get them up here, and then all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. So, like, that doesn't really sit well with me as a fan, especially as a fan getting back into the series, because now you might as well just, you could have just killed the whole series, and then just started back at issue 1, and we all could have been fine with it. It would have been no different than it is now, because now I'm still sitting here with all these old stories sitting in my head saying, okay, well, maybe Robotnik, or Eggman as he's called in this universe, will just snap his fingers and poof, everything will go back to normal. And then we're going to pick up that storyline. But I know that's not going to happen. And we don't know why per se. I actually contacted Ken Penders. I was actually really grateful how fast he responded. I'm going to put my email and his email in, but the gist of it, I spilled my guts to him saying, you know, I was a fan, you know, like I read your stuff when I was a kid. I even gave him dates of like years, like how long I've been reading and everything, and I said, you know, these characters, like there's something to the story. It's like, is there anything that we could do, pretty much. And I gave him like a very short list of characters I had interest in. Basically, Lien-Da, Julie-Su, and Lara-Su are all his. Lara-Su being Knuckles' daughter. And they aren't coming back unless Sega and Archie do something for him, I guess. They're not coming back. St. John, another big character his, not coming back. So that's why they just snapped the finger and he's gone. Even though he got possessed, they could have done a whole storyline with him. He's gone. They could have, I mean, if they were going to get rid of him, they could have done it right. Do the redemption storyline, just have him sacrifice himself to save the kingdom, and then he could go out like a boss and everybody would be happy with him, and if people hated him, then hey, he's dead, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But what I really didn't like, and I mentioned them especially, was Scourge and Fiona, because I really like them being anti-hero villains. So I talked to him, and Scourge apparently he has copyright over, which I'm not gonna lie, I have no clue about comic book copyright laws. I don't know how the hell you could put like a leather jacket and sunglasses on Sonic and say, yo, I made this guy. Like, I don't get it, but that's, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people who could explain it, but for me that just baffles me because I'm on the outside looking in. However, he did say he doesn't have rights to Fiona, so she's off his book. She's technically safe. However, what troubles me in his email, and again, I'm going to put it in, his email, he said, don't look forward to seeing them in the future. Or something along those lines. He said, like, basically, I wouldn't look for them if I were you. And that kind of makes my heart drop, because what would make somebody say that unless they're absolutely confident in it, you know? So, I gotta actually contact Archie, and I guess I gotta push the issue. He suggested doing it as well, telling them, hey, I want to see these characters. I want to see Fiona. I mean, if we're losing Scourge, that's a big loss in a picture to me. But I'd rather have, if I could keep Fiona at least, then at least we keep one character, and then that's a win. But a lot of these characters you will never see again unless something patches between Penders, Archie, and Sega. And I don't think it's going to happen because I did some more digging, and then I find out apparently, I mean, he got painted the bad guy in this no matter how you do it. Which sucks for him. I mean, he's trying to do his own comic thing now. Every Sonic fan is at his throat. They're all sending him emails. I can't imagine how many he must receive. But he's painted the bad guy because at the end of it, they rebooted the series because of something he did with the legal issues. That's how it all comes down to. So regardless of who's right or wrong, he's painted bad guy. So he gets everybody's hate mail. And with that said, I mean, like, he's the one at the front and taking all the blunt for everybody. And Archie and Sega are just sitting back rebooting the series, and it sucks for him. It's a garbage position to be in, but it's kind of what happens when you claim the characters that way, because from what I read, apparently, he said certain timelines had to be canon, certain characters could not die. He specified in an email to another Sonic fan saying that Lien-Da, Locke, who already died, and Julie-Su could not die. And I would assume Lara-Su as well. And we're going to assume that maybe they told him, hey, St. John's dying. And that might have been it. He just says, okay, I have rights to these characters, we've been fighting this for court, I'm just pulling them all out. That's speculation. And that kind of seems possible to me. If he really protects his characters and stories that much. And reading some of the emails that were supposedly from him, he seems very prideful in what he made. So it does seem possible that he would have done something like that. But all I can really say is the series for me, like, I've just been getting back into it. I grew up with it, and I'm starting to love it again. I'm going back, piecing it together. It's kind of ruined for me now. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to still read it, though, at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what the hell I say. I'm still going to read it. I'm still going to end up adapting and enjoying it. But he had all these great stories. They were finally coming ahead. They were going to be something special, whether some of the fans want them or not, and then they just vanished. So I'm going to be personally fighting and sending messages and everything to Archie and Sega. I want Fiona Fox to stay in the series. Whether they have to reintroduce her some ways, I don't care. I don't care how they do it. I just want them to do it. And I would like to fight to get Scourge and everything because I love the Suppression Squad with the anti-heroes, and I love Scourge especially what they made him into. Because as a kid, Scourge was just Sonic with shades and a even worse attitude, and he just showed up and screwed with Sonic. Then Scourge showed up and became green from the Master Emerald, and he actually became somebody. I'd like to have that one saved. I doubt it'll work, but if others join the cause, maybe it will stay, but that's really all I can say, so thank you guys for watching. Dear Mr. Penders, my name is Michael, and I've been reading Sonic the Hedgehog since issue number 5, 1993. Growing up, I followed the series until issue number 70, 1999, because stores in my areas then stopped carrying the comic books. A few years ago, I was at the local grocery store, and I found a familiar face in the magazine section, that being Sonic the Hedgehog. The particular issue was number 233, titled Trial of the Traitor 2012. Since that moment, I've recaptivated by the series and been avidly buying old issues, Sonic Archives, and reading episode synopsis in order to follow the story and be caught up. Part of what I enjoyed in issue 233 was that Jeffrey St. John was being used a lot more than I recall as a child. I remember him being introduced in the Princess Sally miniseries and being a big character in the Endgame saga as he was tasked to hunt and capture Sonic. When I stopped reading, Jeffrey was beginning to rebuild the Secret Service, so I had to read online about him getting married to Hershey, putting his grudge between him and Sonic aside, and him evolving as a character. During this, I also found Sonic Universe, where I enjoyed one particular story arc of theirs, that being Scourge Lockdown. In this, Fiona Fox, who I recalled being an automaton that Tails had a crush on, had broken into jail to rescue Scourge, Anti-Sonic's new form, in order to work with Dr. Finnevis. I found the story interesting as I had only seen Anti-Sonic as a minor antagonist, and reading now it felt like he was his own character. Reading online, I found he had actually gone so far as to conquer the entire Anti-Mobius and push himself as an actual villain, which I thought was good character progression. As for Fiona Fox, I had to do some digging, and I went online buying Fiona-centric issues in order to better get her character. Seeing her in issue 172 go from freedom fighter to traitor, and watching her progress into the Scourge Invasion arc, and finally to busting Scourge out, well, her story was awesome. Needless to say, I was impressed to see someone who was a minor character at best, as her robot debut could have been played off as nothing worth noting again, to this amazing anti-hero made me eagerly await her next story with her. However, we fast forward to now. Sonic the Hedgehog recently did a reboot due to legalities. Awesome stories that sucked me in, like St. John's Betrayal, Fiona Scourge's Breakout, Mecha Sally, Injured Antoine, all these stories had been so much promise were snuffed out. I'm not a legal expert, I'm not even going to feign anything on the subject. I simply read troubles between you and Archie caused certain characters to be removed from the series, which explains why stories ended so abruptly. I know I may not get to see St. John's Redemption, Lien-Da being an awesome opportunist ready to usurp Eggman, Lara-Su and her adventures with Knuckles, Fiona Scourge's amazing story play out, to name a few. I, however, was hoping I could help you see the fan side of this issue. I did not know what transpired between you and Archie. I won't say something like I understand, because I couldn't even begin to imagine how it would feel on any sides in that legal battle. As a fan, I simply want the comic universe I grew up loving, and began to love again, to keep going in the direction it's heading. I understand you claim the Echidnas as your own as well as the St. John's, and that is great as they were yours to start. Lara-Su, Lien-Da, Lara-Su, they'd likely serve you best in your upcoming Lara-Su Chronicles. Hopefully St. John and Hershey St. John will play a role in that series as well. However, I was hoping to know if Fiona and Scourge were yours by right as well. I, as a fan, no, the entire fan base, lost so many great stories and characters from this. I just want to at least see Fiona and Scourge's story play out. I understand you are a busy man, and cannot begin to respond to every message you receive. However, I hope you could tell me news that I may like to hear. If the Sonic fans cannot have all of our beloved characters you birthed into the universe stay, then please tell us Fiona and Scourge will be fortunate enough to stay in the Archie universe. Thank you for your time, Mr. Penders. Michael. Michael, I can't begin to tell you how many emails such as the one you wrote that I've been receiving ever since this whole thing began. I'm not going to go into detail because that would be like pointing fingers and asking people to take sides, and frankly, I'd rather everyone just get along and work things out. With regards to the two main characters you inquired about, Fiona and Scourge, I have only claimed to Scourge by virtue of the character origin, but no claims to Fiona at all. That said, I sincerely doubt these characters will come back at all to the regular series unless the fans express themselves to the powers that be at Archie. Maybe, just maybe, that may do the tricks, but I certainly wouldn't guarantee anything. As for Jeffrey and Hershey, they'll turn up here and there in the stories until they play a main part in one of the later books of the series. I plan a 7-book epic and am just about finishing writing the first book while beginning to illustrate the art for the opening segment. While I'm doing my best to make sure longtime Sonic fans have reason to embrace the Lara-Su Chronicles, I know there will be a lot of resistance at first to some of the changes. I do understand where you're coming from. I deeply appreciate your very thoughtful email. Please feel free to drop a line again with the understanding I may not respond as quick, if at all, depending the circumstances. Thank you, best Ken Penders.